Hi, everyone. Welcome to our daily Get Together live reading club. My name is Patricia Dietrich. I'm the global head of marketing at getAbstract, and I'll be your host today. I'm joined by our CEO and co-founder, Thomas Bergen, and we'll talk about one of his favorite leadership book summaries, which has also become one of my favorites, called Shackleton's Way, Leadership Lessons from the Great Antarctic Explorer. If you haven't read it yet, don't worry. You'll find a link in the comment section so that you can check it out later. While we wait for a few moments to let people sign on, I'd like to remind you that we're doing these live get-togethers every single day on our social media channels to bring people together and to provide a platform where we can exchange knowledge and ideas to navigate the current pandemic wisely and professionally. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and we'll get to them throughout the conversation. So I think we're ready to get started. Welcome, Thomas. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Patricia, for having me.
So in a nutshell, in Shackleton's Way, the authors describe the story of Ernest Shackleton, which was one of the greatest explorers of his time. And it describes the voyage that he did with his crew to the Antarctic in 1914. And unfortunately, their ship was destroyed, so they were left stranded, and they still managed to survive. And I wanted to ask you, Thomas, why does this story speak to you so much during this time, and what can we learn from it?
Yeah, it's this abstract and this book and the whole story about Shackleton fascinated me from very, very early on, the first time I heard about him. And what really resonates, or always resonated, is that Shackleton really put his team first and himself second as a leader. And still he was able, that everybody was following the rules they established together. And he was really an efficient leader, an humble, efficient leader in a big crisis. And he managed that everybody survived. And he managed to change the goal in a very difficult situation. If he would have pursued to try to go to the South Pole, probably everybody would have died. And many others have done like that. But he changed it, and he made everybody coming home and hugging their wives and children again. And that was really, really great.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree. I think that what is so interesting is that it's not just a story about how they about the fact that they survived this journey, but like how they survived. Because Shackleton was known to be very optimistic and to be a very encouraging and energetic leader, and he really made it so that he could guide his people out of this current situation. And I think this is really in contrast to his contemporary. So in the summary, there's an example about one of his rivals, Robert F. Scott, who was a British Navy officer, and he had a completely different style because he came from the military, and he really put the mission first instead of putting the people. And he actually perished in one of his voyages. And his style of leadership was command and control, and which was completely different to Shackleton's. So I wanted to ask you, Thomas, do you think there's a place today for organizations to use command and control, or is that completely outdated?
I think command and control in some situations, it's still a very valuable option. It depends on the leader, on the team, on the target you try to achieve, but it's not an option for me. I don't feel comfortable with it. And I have many times I have troubles, for example, in my family, not accepting that command and control should be a valuable option, because you do not only lead in the company, you have as well as a father and husband, you have as well a leadership position at home. And for example, my wife is coming from South America, and for her, the command and control style in leading a family is much more relevant than the approach I try to take. And huge gap between us, but we try to manage it.
Yeah, it's a little bit different in a family because you can't choose it, but with a team, for sure, one of the things that is really important is to choose the right people so that it fits the culture and it fits
Mhm.
your leadership style. And I think that's one of the things that Shackleton did really well is that he knew how to hire people, and he had this very particular way of hiring, which reminded me in some ways about how you do it. And he didn't really
I take that
care.
as a compliment.
He didn't really care, for sure. um, he didn't really care about the formal education or the resume of the crew. He really wanted people that fit his culture, and he managed to find the right people by asking strange questions and making people uncomfortable during the interview. And as I already revealed before, I think that kind of resembles a little bit your style. Could you tell us about a little bit your process when hiring people?
Yeah, I think hiring and bringing together a good team is really the most relevant aspect of trying to lead an organization to grow and to the targets. Put the right people together, and the what I've very often figured out is that the basic problem of hiring is: do you really speak the same language? Do you have some same values? Do you and one check I very often do, and many of the people I hired know that I
Mm,
I I try to. I'm not good in jokes, but I still try to make a joke, and I look the reaction of the people. Do they laugh or not? Because if they
mm,
don't understand my jokes, it will be so difficult to understand in future when we work together how we try to communicate and getAbstract. Another small thing is when I hired now 5 years ago, I think, a new CFO. I had my purse. I have my small purse. I said, look, that's my purse. Um, may you show me yours? And every candidate had to put his purse, or at least it was, they were not forced, but everybody said, yes, of course. And I looked at the purse. Why? I wanted to see how they are organized, their own finances, because he has to organize now
mm,
the company finances and be in charge. So get them a little bit out of the normal interview style and make it a
mm,
different experience. And you suddenly
mm,
learn many more aspects of the personality than
mm.
just when you ask the usual questions.
And were you impressed by the purse of the current
Yes,
CFO?
yes. Michael's purse was well organized, much bigger than mine. I have such a small purse, but because I'm totally unorganized, and so I keep very few things with me, and like that, it's organized. But if I would have a bigger purse, it would be disastrous. So he had a big purse, and it was well organized, and like that, he's organizing our finances. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that's a great point that about hiring people, hiring great people, and also hiring a good, second and third in command to make sure that things can still go on in a moment of crisis. So in Shackleton's case, for example, once he had to go on a lifeboat to find help, he left his second in command in charge, and that worked out really well because he had chosen the right person. Um, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
So,
just to give you
yeah.
something, Patricia, here, and that's a very important part as well of an organization. It's not only important who you have in charge as the first officer, but as well, everybody needs a backup, a second man,
Mm, mm,
because the organization is only as strong as the bench is strong, because you will
mm,
have losses. People will leave the company, or and if you are not capable of having then a strong second leader, uh, you will suffer.
mm. That's a great point. And so another point that I really loved about Shackleton's leadership style is that he was all about also self-sacrifice and making sure that he didn't give the tasks that were most gruesome and most difficult to his people, but actually he wasn't scared to do those tasks himself first and kind of set the example. And this idea of leading by example, I think, is very, very powerful, particularly today. And so part of his strategies, I think, were, that he was genuinely concerned about people. He was concerned about being fair and about fostering teamwork. And I think this is really about the values of his crew and the way that he worked. And I think that this is a parallel to the values of a company, right? That in a moment of crisis, for example, the current situation that we're in, a company really has to lean into become more important than ever. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, the values of a company are first of all, the values of a person are so important. And when you are working for a company, the purpose of that company and the values of that company should really reflect um, your own compass. Otherwise, it's very difficult that you can bring the performance that you should bring. So the whole company is outperforming the rest. And in today's situation, it's absolutely not enough just to be average and do your job from 8 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really bring your heart. And if you do that,
Mm-hmm.
you really suddenly flourish. You feel that you are at the right spot because your inner values, your purpose, and the purpose of the company or organization you're working with match together. And if that happens, then really good things may be achieved.
Mm. Yeah. That's a really good reminder for both leaders looking for people and the employees and the people that are looking for a job. The culture fit should be right on both sides. And talking about one of those culture points, I think what is also very important to remember is that it's not just always about the work. Leaders also have to remember that people need also a work-life balance. And that's a big topic now because with the pandemic, a lot of us are working from home and we need a lot of support from this. And you and I have talked about the dangers of burnout in this situation. And I wanted to ask you a little bit, what do you think leaders can do today to really help their employees, manage to have a healthy work-life balance?
First of all, be honest with yourself. First of all, I think many leaders are in the position to burn out first because they very often never stop. And I just can tell you what I did. I figured out probably always a little bit in danger of not stopping because I'm
Mm,
always all in. And I asked you guys now to help me to organize my life a little bit better and do sports again. Normally, I love to play
mm,
tennis. I can't play tennis now, and if I can't play tennis, I don't do sports. And so I asked you to help me, and I think it was Kate who said something
mm,
about there was another company offering an iWatch or a Garmin to the employees if they participate on a daily sport routine or a weekly sport routine, and we could organize something like that. And I said, okay, let's do it together. And since then, finally, I started sports again, doing it at home on a treadmill. Horrible, I hate
and
it,
I
but I'm
I think the
still,
whole
it's
company
much
is
better than
is doing
nothing.
sports now.
Yeah, and the whole
We
company is
have
now doing sports. I think everybody ordered one of those watches. I have one as well. So,
yeah,
and but that's an old one. And
yeah.
but it's just a small initiative. Another thing is being honest means as well that I try. Normally, I walk through the offices in the morning when I come to Lucerne.
Mm,
Only a small part of our employees work in the office in Lucerne, but still, at least I have contact. And what I
mm,
try to do now is every morning a small video to send out and just talk about my own experiences, what's going on. And that helps me to reflect as well myself a little bit
mm,
and be aware of the dangers of what's going on. First, 3 weeks ago, I think when I started, I told you stay at home. And now I tell you
yeah.
not to work too much, but it's not only for you, it's as well for me, a reminder.
Mm, mm. That's a great reminder, and I think that's something that Shackleton also did, and we're doing, and I think every company should do is that to encourage people. And the great part about this is that we ourselves within the company we can encourage each other. All employees can encourage each other, to take some time, and also to take some time to connect. Besides talking about work, usually at the office you have time for a coffee, you have time for a tea, and now you could do the same by taking a virtual coffee with your colleagues. So we have a question from Henrik, and it is any of today's well-known leaders comparable to Shackleton in her or his leadership style? Oh, I like this question. What do you think?
I have to ask yourself. I do not know that many leaders. I've met many good CEOs, but I only worked for 2 companies in my life. And that was Migros Bank and now getAbstract. So my experience with other leaders is very only a few, but I'm sure there are
Yeah.
many good managers and
Yeah.
leaders out there
Yeah.
like that.
I'm I'm I'm
I'm
certain there
sure
are
about
so
that.
many, and in our library, I think we also have books from many authors and leaders that are fantastic. One of my favorites for sure is Simon Sinek. I think that he has a similar view to Shackleton in this sense of servant leadership and leaders eat last. I think that's one of his books, which is a good reminder that the people come first, and then the leader. Also, I
But
think,
Patricia,
yep,
may I say something here? And sorry,
of course.
and that's why leading is so tough normally. Because if leading would be a dictatorship, a command and control only, it would be quite much easier. I don't think it would be successful or satisfying, but it would be much easier. But if you really have to drink the water that you are preaching, if you really have to do yourself the things that you are asking the others to do, then leading is tough, and it's not always that much fun. And that's why I think many good leaders, after a certain time, they just say, "Okay, it's now enough. Another shall step up and take over and do the forerunner." I think that's a very natural evolution.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it is hard, and I think that this summary is a good reminder that we should not be afraid to lead. It's hard, but we shouldn't be afraid to do it, and to make sure that we that remember the people. So we have another question coming in from Kate. She says, "I'm curious to hear more about burnout. How do you, Thomas, continue to lead when personally facing burnout? Alternatively, if you recognize the team's burnout, how do you make sure to keep their spirits lifted?"
I mean, Kate, first of all, I never had myself until now a burnout. I was lucky enough to avoid it and to not take everything so seriously that sometimes, even if the stress is high, I can't sleep well. That helps. That helps tremendously. But when I realized that people getting close to burnout, I directly approached them. And I had already several cases within getAbstract where I told people, you stay now at home for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you talk to somebody who's professional in such a situation, because it's now you're at the border of breaking down. It's not good any longer, and you have to and then you need professional help. I'm not the right person to help in such a situation, but I can see what's going on sometimes, and I'm aware that this is dangerous for the person and for in the long run as well for the organization. So you have to address it.
And it's also a good reminder to check in with ourselves and with our teams, and make sure everybody's doing well, and also be honest with ourselves and see, are we doing too much? Are we in danger of getting into that situation or not? We have one more question coming in, and it says, "Thomas, could you share some tips to rise up to the challenge of leading while things are falling apart?"
My wife something says to me, Thomas, you are really only helpful when things fall apart. when others really wrong, then you're. And I was always lazy. I didn't like to work that much. It's not my thing. But when there's a stressful situation, I feel really energized. And I think this is that's something that has to do with my personality, with my DNA. I don't know if you can learn that. My father was the opposite, and he always told me, and he was always an employee. He would have been a wonderful entrepreneur. Only he was always afraid of everything. And I'm not that afraid. I truly believe in the power of people, in the power of us humans to solve problems and to get to a better life all together. And that guides me. And when things are boring, I think sometimes you cannot move that much. Right now, you can move so much, so fast. In your life, in your private life, but as well in the company. Patricia, how much did we do the last 3 weeks? It's amazing, isn't it? And as well, I truly believe as well in society, and that motivates me so tremendously. So I can't give you a tip. I can only tell you, stay healthy, stay focused, eat well, do exercises, meditate a little bit. I pray on a regular basis. I pray several times a day. It helps me tremendously. Others can meditate, do yoga, I don't know what. And then try to find your inner peace. And suddenly when you find your inner peace, you find the compass, and you are not afraid any longer. And then you suddenly are capable of doing things that many couldn't believe before that you are capable of doing. I truly believe at the end of the day, everybody is capable by overcoming fears.
That's
But
a great
overcoming
message.
fears is difficult.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great message, especially during this time. We have to remember that there are also opportunities, and I think if we're not afraid, we can be successful and continue our lives successfully. I think this is a great message to wrap up. There's a lot to learn from Shackleton's ability to identify strengths, to have a supportive culture. There's a summary for you. And he was certainly a great example of leadership. And with so many people working remotely right now, it's really a reminder that we have to focus less on management and more on true leadership. So with this, I would like to say thank you, Thomas, for joining me today. Thank you to everyone for watching. And I'd like to remind you that at getAbstract, our mission is to provide relevant knowledge so that you can make better decisions in your personal and professional lives. And to us, this is more important than ever. So until May 18th, we're offering free access to our full library. Go to our website to sign up, and be safe. Practice social distancing, but don't disconnect with others. And join us tomorrow for another Get Together. Bye, everyone.
Extraordinary challenges require extraordinary responses from thought leaders, company executives, and employees. As the coronavirus pandemic unfolds and businesses scramble to adapt to escalating containment efforts, getAbstract is here to help organizations navigate this crisis wisely and professionally. For over 20 years, we've been committed to providing relevant knowledge from reliable sources to help people make better decisions in their personal and professional lives. In line with our mission to empower decision makers with relevant knowledge from trusted sources, we are proud to offer businesses free access to our full library until May 18. Embark on a no-strings-attached knowledge journey with getAbstract. Sign up today.